Dawn Wednesday on the shores of Pickwick Lake on the Tennessee River for the climax of the Walmart FLW Tour's regular season. More than 300 pros and co-anglers are here and more than ready for their shot at the $1 million Forest Wood Open. Some of them head east and rise through the tallest block east of the Rockies so they can fish Wilson and Wheeler Lakes. Others spend the day fishing on Pickwick. And at the end of the day, certain facts become evident. 5 fish limits will be few. Less than 10% of the field brings them in. Another fact that's quite evident, it's going to be hard to beat Marty Stone on this first day, a huge 19-pound stringer of fish. And these guys aren't dogging it. The fishing is really hard out there. Day 2, and some of the fish get bigger, but things don't get any easier. Pickwick Lake is legendary for good bass fishing. As we mentioned, it's on the Tennessee River as it flows generally north, eventually into Kentucky Lake. Most of it's in Alabama, some of it's in Mississippi. In most parts, it feels more like a river than a lake. Now, a lot of the guys are fishing in Pickwick. Some, however, are locking east into Wilson Lake and even farther east into Wheeler Lake near Huntsville, Alabama. Well, here we are on the final day of the regular tour climax here on the Walmart FLW Tour, the Forest Wood Open, a big money tournament, some tough fishing, so we got all the elements in place to have a bunch of guys with a lot of things on their mind this week, Jerry.
Well, I should say, and the fishing's a little bit tough. Every strike you get is going to be so important today. It's not going to be a case of, well, I'll have another chance. These guys got to really do a good job, and we got some guys out there, some new guys to our Final 5 that, quite honestly, are scared to death when they were leaving this morning. So, I'm wondering, are they going to loosen up a little bit, kind of get in the flow of things? Rick Clunn is boy, he's ready to go.
He's the master, and he's
ready.
So
it's going to be real interesting.
Let's talk about that field a little bit. We got Johnny McCombs from Morris, Alabama, a fellow who did really good last year out here on the tour.
Yeah, he's been in our top 5 before. Has a lot of capabilities.
Arlie Napier, first time in the top 10. He's converted that into the top 5. A young kid. He looks like he's about 17 years old.
I know, and I keep thinking about some rookie coming up out of the minor leagues, and his first at-bat is against Randy Johnson. That's how Arlie must feel fishing against Rick Clunn.
David Dudley, who's made 6 top 10s. He's first time to convert to the top 5. He's a young guy, too, but at least he's been sort of in the pressure before.
Well, talk about pressure. Remember, he fell in the water during his last
So his first job is to stay dry today.
Right, that's right.
Marty Stone, 7 top 10s on the Walmart FLW Tour.
Yeah.
He's converted 6 of those into top 5 appearances, but he's never closed the deal, never won one of these things.
He's had really last couple of tournaments been a little slow for him, but then he's in the background of view right now, but he's had a great year.
And Rick Clunn, who's the greatest bass fisherman of all time, many people say he's on the verge of achieving something really remarkable. This is his 3rd top 5 in a row. That in itself is remarkable. Should he win this tournament, he'll notch winnings of almost $500,000 for this year on the Walmart FLW.
In 3 months.
In 3 months.
That's incredible.
A lot of money, a lot of fishing coming up. Don't go away. Our anglers are running now, and some of them don't have far to go. This is Marty Stone, and Jerry, he's not going far at all from the launch ramp, is he?
We're still in Lake Pickwick here with Marty Stone, and I would be surprised if he doesn't have his first cast almost in sight. Clunn is also on Pickwick. Remember how far he went when we fished over in Memphis?
Long way, but
didn't take him long.
He's already arrived
Absolutely.
Here today.
David Dudley and Johnny McCombs now. That's a different story. We'll talk them through a couple of locks on up into Wilson and Wheeler. Clunn is reaching for his crankbait already.
Yeah.
There's Marty Stone's
got a different sort of look to this place he's going to.
Right. His boat is slowing down. As I said, I think he's going to be casting pretty soon. Clunn is, guess what? He's getting a crankbait.
Well, I can't believe that.
Can't believe it. The guys are spread out, though, and it's going to be kind of interesting because we've got 2 or 3 or 4 different fishing patterns going on here today.
The Walmart FLW Tour is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices, always. By B.F. Goodrich, take control. By Coleman, the outdoor recreation company. And by Fuji. Get the picture with Fujifilm. We're back, and that's David Dudley waiting to lock through into Wilson Lake from Pickwick Lake, and he's getting a little bonus fish here, Jerry.
This is gravy, man. When you catch a fish while you're waiting to lock through, you know, and so you got one fish, and you really haven't started fishing yet. David has, of course, got the problem that this fish would not be 15 inches. And tell me something kind of unusual here.
Be close.
Lake Wilson has a 15-inch size limit. They have to be 15 inches or bigger to keep them. In Wheeler and Pickwick, they could be 12, but because, you know, who's to say what lake you caught them
Right,
in?
because it's possible to fish in Wilson, they all have to be 15 inches.
Right, so they all have to be 15 inches right here. And
That one made it.
Yeah, that one made it, or either that or he got a charge from his battery. One or the other.
That's what I'm talking about.
Happy man right there, Tommy.
Well, I'll say. I want some of what he's having.
Yeah, baby. Come on, give me another one.
These fishes get some tabletops. I mean, they'll be in a place like in front of this boat or something other. And if you don't come right through the middle of it, you ain't gonna get a bite. And it's very crucial. Stay in that one little spot. You can catch 20 pounds off a place as big as your kitchen table. And if you throw 10 foot to the right or 10 foot to the left, not get a bite.
You follow crankbait fishing. That's what all the good crankbait anglers will tell you, right?
And it may really come into play here today. These fish, again, as he just said, could just be in, I think they're going to be in a little bigger places than tabletops. But they could be in a 10-foot square, and you can go to the side of them or even over to the top of them and miss them all together and not even think there's any fish there. Boy, there's a good one to start the day with, isn't it?
Harley Napier fishes on the Tennessee River, but far east, closer to Knoxville, Tennessee, but he says it's the same sort of condition.
And I think that you're going to find that the pattern he's using is going to be very similar to the pattern. And let me stop right here and have you look at the bill of that lure.
It's a deep one.
Which tells you that baby is getting down there.
That's a 20-foot diver, would you say,
right,
something like that?
It could go 20 foot deep. Bounce off those rocks, and as you know, as the fishermen always say, the secret is to get it to bump into the contour. And so if you can bump it into rocks and contour down there in 20 and 22 feet of water and find that right place, boy, you're going to catch some fish.
That'll make your heart pump.
David Dudley with his extra fish now is heading into the lock for real. They're about to lock through. It takes about a good 40 minutes to get the water. Look how tall it is.
That's a monster, isn't it?
Well, it's the deepest one, or the highest, I guess I should say, east of the Mississippi.
How long do you think that it takes to fill that up?
Well, it takes about 40 minutes. I sat there and watched him do that the other day.
I thought you did. That's the reason I was asking you. I knew you would know the answer to that.
Well, it's about 40 minutes to get up to the top there. It goes about 80, 90 feet, it looks like to me.
That's incredible.
This is the one
and
we
of course, the guys don't have a thing to do as that's happening. You know, you got to be sitting there wondering what someone else is doing. But obviously, you sit there and talk about fishing.
One similar to that right there that ran real straight.
We got them with 4-aught Gamakatsus and 4-aught owners, and you know, and we make them with both hooks.
Will they hit a jig?
I ain't throwed it. I'm throwing a worm.
Big worm?
Well, brush hog. I ain't throwed. That's all. I went through it the first day, you know, with a spinnerbait, and I didn't get a bite. Turn back around with the brush hog. Whack, 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 whack.
I need to be throwing that up there on them smallmouth, but I ain't got none. I got some big ones. I ain't got no little ones.
I've never caught many smallmouth on them. I probably ain't ever caught any on a brush hog, but I ain't ever been a place to throw it at.
I haven't either.
Man, they like that tube, man. It's hard to beat a tube for during smallmouth.
So I give it this, it's a lot higher than it was yesterday when I first got in. But they are bringing it down. Now, where they quit at, that's the big deal. Where they quit and when they turn it around. First day when I had that really big catch, it was coming out just like this, but they quit pretty quick. And I just shot it back up. It can come up. They can bring it up that much in about an hour and a half. They jack with this water so bad. when it's really bad, though. I mean, this isn't great, but when it's really bad, it's when they stop doing anything. You don't have any current. At least with the current at a position of fish, like that one. Get your butt in here. Yes, good way to start. Caught a 2-pounder off that same tree yesterday.
Very well. All these guys are dealing with river conditions and current and structure and deep things. Marty Stone just fishing it like a little lake back, in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, and this isn't the technique of choice for Lake Pickwick. Yeah, they're normally either fishing behind all the dams or out there on ledges. And boy, as you say, this looks like a farm pond somewhere that Marty has come across. And also, they don't normally fish that shallow, especially at this time of the year. But there's always a few fish shallow.
That old gambler tube, I'm telling you, that thing in the summertime is just unbelievable.
Here we sit, all alone, twiddling our thumbs, while other people right now are hard at it. I'm hard at it, too. Sitting back, chilling, relaxing, enjoying life right now. No pressures. The pressure will start in about another hour from now for me, while other people are still fishing. I hope they're enjoying themselves.
David Dudley of Mantillo, South Carolina, has made it into Wilson Lake and all the way across Wilson Lake. Now he's about to lock into Wheeler Lake, so he's got a good long run today.
And you can bet that Rick Clunn is there on Pickwick fishing those ledges, and Arlie said he was fishing in a foot of water. You know, I kind of doubt he's fishing quite that deep. And I'll bet you Clunn is probably fishing from 8 to 12 foot deep.
What we got here is basically a trough with 2 ridges on both sides. The ridges come up to about 8-9 foot, and the trough is about 13 to 14. I'm kind of easing toward the fish because these fish are real spooky, the smallmouth are. Probably about 1 or 2 casts away from making the right cast yet. About right there or a little further is about the right cast. If they're there. We'll know in a second. And I'm throwing just basically a 8 to 10 foot deep diving crankbait and chartreuse. If they're there, this should be the cast right here.
I want you to look out across the water there and be aware of the fact that you have no idea where you're at. He can't see the bottom out there.
He's like floating in space.
And if you'll watch him all through the show, hey, that was incredible. He called that shot, didn't he?
He absolutely did. He said, if they are there, this is the cast.
And there's nothing visible there for him to cast at, so he has to be
he's foul hooked.
Knowing exactly what that bottom looks like. And if you watch him, let's watch him all day long. Look at the bank. Look at his depth finder. Line up all his markers and stay right on the spot.
I have to play him down real slow because he's got the hook out right in his side. I'm going to try to move us off the fish.
Really conscious of staying off those fish. He says they're so spooky. In fact, he told me yesterday that in some of the places he's fishing today, he's going to have to turn off his depth finder, turn off all his sonar because they are that sensitive. They're that subject to moving.
Right, and his ledge now, again, is only 8 or 10 foot deep, so you get very close to him, you could spook him. Hey, and I want to point out the fact that he said he had this fish foul hooked. I want our viewers not be thinking that he did something illegally here. Foul hooking means that he didn't catch the fish in the mouth. Now, that crankbait runs through a school of fish down there, and 1, 2, maybe even 3 fish follow it, and he hopes 3 doesn't follow it, because what will happen is he'll drag them all away from that spot. But anyhow, a couple of fish might run at that lure and actually strike it, miss it, and when it turns to the side, the bait will accidentally hook them. Now, that's what he's calling a foul hook. Most of the time, it's tougher to land them when they're foul hooked than it is when they're really hooked in the mouth. And so he is being extremely careful with this fish.
That one made me earn him. See where he was hooked on the side there. Fortunately, he was hooked pretty good. Now get back there before they decide to abandon ship. This doesn't last very long here. It's really spooky.
Now, Arlie doesn't seem to be quite as worried about spooking his fish as Rick Clunn. Of course, he's catching a different kind of fish here.
Right, deeper fish. And that's probably right, but I guarantee he still doesn't want to get very close to them. And you know, we see spectators watching these fishermen all the time. This is one instance, the way he's fishing, the way Clunn's fishing. I think if I was a spectator, I'd like to be out there and really get zeroed in on exactly how they're doing it. You know, if they were fishing up
right down to exactly where they're throwing.
Right. Yeah. And if they were fishing up against the bank, you know, if you were a spectator watching, you'd just be doing it for the fun of seeing them catch the fish, which is
you'd have
okay.
the idea of what they're doing pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah.
But out here, it's a lot different. And now a fisherman can understand why they're lining up a boat a certain way and how deep they're fishing and the exact spot.
More like that, and I'm in the hunt. Fish start turning up on me. I'll live in hot weather, get you a bag of ice like this. It'll cost you. I've lost one boat one time by not taking care of my fish. I had 10 fish weighed 59 pounds, got beat by 59.94. Now on, this boy put ice on his fish.
This is the $1 million Forest Wood Open. 2 of our 5 finalists have almost reached their fishing spot. That in the foreground is Johnny McComb and Dave Dudley. And they're in the lock waiting to get into Wheeler Lake. And they're getting is that legal?
They're getting energized there, aren't they?
They're getting energized. I don't know if they can accept candy from strangers.
These guys have been fighting it all day long. And they have finally got in the position where they're going to start being able to make a cast or two.
Sometimes them barges going by, pulling water, and then throwing it back will get them to hit. And I know this next spot we're going to, that's the way it is.
Never heard that before.
Isn't that interesting? I had not heard it about bass fishing. I've heard it about trout fishing and walleye fishing, but I'm sure that it would work the same way when you're fishing for bass.
A lot of the guys around the dock have been talking about the smallmouth bite a little better when they turn the turbines on the dam.
So there's some water movement.
Back us up a little bit before see, they're just swatting at it. Remember I told you I had several hits. See, both of those fish are hooked on the outside.
That first little spot has done exceptionally well for Rick Clunn. He's got 3 fish in the boat now. That's a great start in a tough fishing tournament.
And he is fishing a lure that he is really tough with. That would scare me if I was the other competitors. It seems to be just all falling in place for it. You remember here weeks ago, Steve Daniels, when that tournament down at Okeechobee, got to talk to us about how he fished a husky jerk, how he felt the lure, how important it is. Well, the same thing goes with this crankbait, even more so. And you can bet your bottom dollar that Clunn is throwing that crankbait out there and bumping it on the bottom. And it's almost like there's no rod. He has another fish, incidentally.
Yeah.
It's like there's no rod or line there. It's just like the lure is connected to his arm. And he has such an incredible feel for it. He knows exactly what it's doing. He knows when not only when a fish hits it, but when a rock hits it, or he can tell when it dives off the ledge. I just can't tell you how important the word feel is when you're using this lure here. It is not something, Tommy, that he just throws out and runs back to the boat.
Winds it back in. You also mentioned he throws it a long way, and that helps him too.
Absolutely. It gives it more time to get down there and get into the depth of water that he wants it to get into. And yeah, watch him cast. He throws the fire out of that thing. Of course, he's in open water. You and I would have it in a tree if we were close to the bank. But Rick doesn't have a problem with that. There's no trees around anywhere close.
My most important thing to deep water structure fishing is keeping your eye on that depth finder and to keep your boat in the right angle to throw. When you catch one, I didn't just then, I ought to kick the marker buoy over, but I pretty well got this place lined up. It's getting that same pull each cast. I'm gonna have to turn the boat around, get that same little angle.
Being very careful about where he's putting that boat and where he's throwing at those fish, Jerry.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of saying some of the things we've been stressing here with both him and Clunn. And one more thing, he's felt his way into another fish here, incidentally. Another thing I want you to notice, as they're reeling their lures, both he and Clunn have got that rod tip down, pointed at the bait, pointed right where the bait should be. They never have it swinging around up in the air, and that was a bad landing job right there.
I wouldn't do that. You could lose a fish or bury a crankbait.
Boy.
Finally, we bring you pictures from Wheeler Lake. David Dudley is up there, and David, we understand that those guys have been in your fishing spot, fishing for an hour to 45 minutes. We know it's awfully tough to roll up and see a sight like that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's not something that you look forward to. It's your worst nightmare when something like that happens.
Now, are these people who saw you fishing there and decided to fish there today, or was this their spot and has been for a while?
No, that boat had watched me catch them yesterday, and when I pulled up there early this morning, they had already been there, and when I got there, they were telling me that they already had their limits on that spot.
And that's tough because you have to go via water. You can't trailer up to the lakes, and so that's probably what they did. They got there, what 30 minutes, an hour before you did?
Let's see, I got there at 8 o'clock. It gets daylight. I assume that they're fishing a little club tournament or something, and they got there before. I imagine they were there 2 hours before I was.
I think probably, David, the first thing you got to do is kind of get your mind straightened back out, as you well know, and kind of blow that off and go for plan B.
Yeah, the day's not over yet. I'm going to, go practicing a little bit. I know it's probably going to be one deep, so I'm going to go out searching deep, and hopefully I can come up on a school of them because I feel that's the only way I'm going to play catch-up right now. So that's pretty much going to be my game plan.
Well, David, regardless of what happens today, I mean, you've been 5 times in the top 10. This week is a breakthrough in that you did make it to the final 5 this week.
Yeah, oh yes, I can't complain. I'm more excited. I just got chill bumps right now when you just said that again. I'm as excited as you can be, and tickled to death to be here. I don't second guess anything I've done all week or any decisions, so it's a wonderful feeling.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, I know you want me to bring this up, but one of the most entertaining pieces of video, all the fishermen love it, the fans love it, and I know you didn't love the incident, was just you were focused so hard and fishing so hard back at Murray Lake, I guess.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, just stepped off the deck of that boat like wasn't anything going on, and I know it's kind of painful to watch, but you provide a lot of people with a lot of entertainment on that day.
I could give you an instant. Oh, man, I just missed one right there.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
broke my rod, too.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at that. He bit off the whole end of my worm right there.
Oh, man, that's too bad. I have to bring up the fact that other people being on your spot, that's part of it. I'm afraid that's part of this game.
It's the same for everyone. It's not like David was singled out. You know, it just happens to people occasionally.
And David is a very good fisherman, as we well know. And sometimes you just have to get through those things and have another plan and not let it blow your mind, because I think it would blow my mind, probably blow yours. But
well, the worst thing that would happen to me is for them to tell me that they'd already caught a limit of fish. If they had just kept that to themselves, I think it would make my mind better. I don't know how it worked on David or not.
Well, he's just got to suck it up and find him a new place and start over again. It sounds like that's what he's doing. Yeah. And once again, we want to remind you that the key to Clunn and Napier is knowing exactly where they're at.
The Forest Wood Open is brought to you by Black & Decker, proud sponsor of the Walmart FLW Tour. By Wrangler, real, comfortable jeans. By Timex, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. and by the Visa $2 Million Challenge. Log on to FLWTour.com. Well, as we look at the early scores, it would certainly seem the crankbait is the way to go, at least in Pickwick Lake. It's doing the job for sure for Rick Clunn and Arlie Napier.
Yeah, and McCombs and Dudley and Stone are all fishing with plastics. They've got some catching up to do, but there's still plenty of time to do
This
it.
stuff is really good, and we wouldn't break away from it if it wasn't something really important. Clark Winlet is here with us, and Clark
That's
has won
important.
an important award. That is important. The Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year, that's the award for the most consistency, the best performance overall throughout the year, through all the tournaments. And Clark, it's not easy excelling in every one of 6 tough tournaments, is it?
That's right. You got to really be consistent and catch fish in every tournament, in every situation. And, you know, I was just fortunate this year. Things really worked out really well.
Any keys, anything different this year from last year? Or?
No, not really. You know, my family travels with me, and I think that really gives me an edge. I'm not worried about things at home. You know, they're with me all the time, and I think that's great. And just a lot of hard work.
You seem to me to be a guy who really is good at putting all the distractions, you know, everybody's got distractions in their life, aside when the time comes to fish and to plan your way through a tournament. You must be pretty good at that.
Well, I think you have to be able to do that. You know, as many distractions as we have out here with sponsors and seminars and all the different distractions you can have, you know, you got to put it out of your mind, because mentally, you know, every fisherman out here is really good technically, and mentally you have to be better than everybody else to be able to compete.
Clark, I want to know, are you getting better?
I think I'm definitely getting better. You know, I'm getting better mentally. Now, as far as the technical part, just like we talked about, you know, to me, I'm there. I'm as good as I'm going to get at that. But mentally, thinking through, you know, when you should move, when you shouldn't move, a little bit comes from experience, but then a lot of it's just, you know, a mindset that you have.
You know, let's be honest, what, 3 years ago when you was the Angler of the Year?
Right.
Clark wins, and we said, who's he? Who's he? Because you really hadn't made a top 5 throughout the whole year.
And so we didn't get close. And then it seems like you're in our face every tournament. And of course, that is really tough to do.
It's tough, but it sure is fun to do. And you know, Angler of the Year, there wasn't much emphasis put on it back then in '97, and now there's starting to be a lot more emphasis on it too. So
I guess it does stick out a lot more. And is it harder to win that, or is it harder to come in and win a specific tournament?
I think it's a lot harder just to win Angler of the Year.
I mean,
to me, you have to be consistent every tournament. You can't have a bad one. And the worst one I had this year, I finished 58th, but all the other ones were pretty close to a top 10. So, you know, you got to get points in every tournament, and that's tough to do.
Here's the impressive thing. With all this going on, your family is still #1.
That's right. I love them to death. I wish they were here this week. They couldn't be, but without them, you know, people ask what's been the biggest change, and about the last 3 years they've been traveling with me. About the last 3 years I've been catching a whole lot more fish. So I just think it's easier to focus on fishing when they're here with you.
Over the last 3 years, you've gained the reputation as being the toughest guy to beat out here. Now you got a little something on paper. Congratulations with the reward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Get in here. That one might. Outside chance that one's gonna keep. I don't know though. He can't eat it no deeper than what he just ate that. Oh, they can't stand that tube. Need to be a dentist to get this one out. All right. Hey, things are looking up for the home team. That's #2. About on pace as I was yesterday, just slow. Done work this set of trees one time too. I can't stand it. That's what I keep on saying about this current in here. Whether it's in, out, up, down, I'd rather have it coming in and raising things up, but at least there is a little bit of current. It keeps on putting new fish on these trees.
$1 million Forest Wood Open in the lead just barely right now. That man, Rick Clunn, he and Arlie Napier both have 4 fish, and Rick has a slight lead in poundage right now. So we got a good contest going on.
And Clunn is fishing primarily with his Bagley and Bill Norman deep diving crankbaits, and oh my goodness, he has done it again here, looks like.
Same spot. Same spot.
Well, now how can you tell, Tommy?
Well, that one little finger of land out there looks the same because he's lined up on it every time.
You're right.
Yeah.
But my point is that, boy, he's out in the middle of the lake. It would be hard. You'd be hard pressed to go find him.
Oh, I could never find it. I could never find it.
Boy, again, he is making the same cast in the same stretch of water, though, and it's really paying off for him.
Yeah. That's the first smallmouth I've caught on the DD22. It's been catching most of my fish, but they've been the largemouth. Whew, I catch my breath. I have a bad habit to do it when I used to play basketball. You know, you get in a tense situation, you hold your breath, and then you don't realize when you finish why you can't breathe anymore.
Breathe a little bit.
He's breathing a lot easier.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to point out that Rick Clunn is in awful good shape, and many of these fishermen are in great shape. You get to thinking about these guys not being athletic, not being in shape, but you ever stand in the front of the boat? Oh, no, not another one, Tommy, not another one.
All right. Starting to knock him down now.
Did you ever stand in the front of the boat all day long? Look, he has no place to sit down. He's got his right foot on that trolling motor, maneuvering his boat at all times, making a zillion casts a day.
This is the hard part right here. I got to go all the way back here, get him as far away from those fish as I can, because that'll spook them quicker than anything.
What he's talking about right here is that the fish would swim right straight back to that school, the school of fish on that ledge, and completely disrupt things.
Arlie Napier, you told us last night that you pretty much grew up in a bass boat. Tell us some more about that.
Well, my dad started me out fishing at a very young age, and he don't fish like that no more, but he fished me like 250, 300 days a year ever since I was 10-year old. And I got a lot of experience put on under my belt by my dad keeping me on the water. Matter of fact, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, he used to put me in the rod box of a night when we night fished, and he'd put a jar of pork chunk to keep air so it'd get in the rod box. I'd just fuss so I get to go with him. And,
Well, you learned your job really well. And tell us the lakes, the kind of places that you would fish in.
Well, I'm fishing at the mouths of the creeks on little old humps. Come out to where you got 30 foot of water. Fishes in the summertime are going to come out, and their sanctuaries that are out on the, are going to be next to some real deep water. They'll come up 14, 15 foot, but they got to have deep water close by. And what you do, you just start look at all you big major creeks and go back in them. If they're real deep, you can fish back in them. But if there's no deep water in there, you come back out to where you got 30 foot of water, and you start looking at the mouths of them. And that's been my pattern the whole tournament in this. These fish are...
Arlie, I'm surprised you're not catching a few more smallmouth with that technique.
Well, I've been getting a couple every day. I haven't hit my smallmouth hole yet, though.
I see. One more question about that fishing that deep water. Tell me what size line you're using, and does that have any effect on the depth of the bait?
Most definitely. I'm using a 10-pound, real small diameter line where the bait will get down, and I'm making an extremely long cast.
All right, Arlie, thank you. That's a guy they may be calling the giant killer after today.
Isn't that something? You know, I've made the comment earlier about a ball player coming out of the rookie league and jumping in there with the big boys might be kind of nervous. I think he was nervous this morning. But you know what? He's looking pretty tough now.
Hard to get enough fish in 4 days fishing. There he is.
What's hard is to get enough fish to keep up with Rick Clunn.
That's right.
That's job one today, and Arlie's doing his best, but I'm afraid he's behind a little bit.
Well, but what he said there what really makes a lot of sense. You know, it's hard to have one spot, even if it's a deep spot like he's fishing, that you can depend on to just keep catching fish day after day, because you're going to do one. Well, yeah, it doesn't seem to be affecting Clunn, does it?
There he goes again.
But you're going to do one of two things. You're going to either catch them or you're going to spook them and move them to another place. So you better have several places.
You notice how many of these have humpbacks that we've caught? That's the second one I've caught like that. It's got a humpback in it. Good thing about those, usually they're stocky. They carry a little more weight.
We haven't had a chance to see Johnny McCombs very much today, and that's been the story of his day. We haven't had much to show. He's doing kind of a shallow water thing himself, isn't he?
Yeah, and these guys have been, of course, fishing in the lakes that they lock up into, and they've had awful good luck in those spots the first few days. But boy, they sure seem to be drying up today, and they're fishing with plastics now. They're fishing with Carolina rigs and tubes.
Time to put on the rational hat. Fishermen don't have freshwater tournament fishermen don't have a hat that makes sense. We basically adopted a baseball cap, and this time of year, all that does is turn your ears into bacon. Even though it's not pretty, it's effective.
Rick, sometimes you don't always show us how happy you are, but I could tell last night you were happy to be in a place where you get to do the kind of fishing that I think you like the best, right?
Well, it's been the most successful technique for me over the years would be that early summer pattern when the fish move out. They wad up in these small bunches and they get out on, intermediate ledges. They're not exceptionally deep. They're anywhere from normally, 8 to 15 foot that time of year. Puts it right in that target range of your crankbaits, and that's what I like to do. And it's just tough enough that most people will give up on it before they actually, get on the fish.
And you could barely miss those fish, couldn't you?
Yeah, in fact, I can pretty much call the cast that I'm going to catch the fish on. I'll usually try to set the boat up a little ways away from the fish, ease to them to make sure I got my bearings and everything. And usually I can pretty well tell you within 3 to 5 casts when I'm fixing to catch a fish. They're in that small of little areas. And if you go past them another 10 yards, you won't catch them, or you miss them 5 yards the other way, you won't catch them.
And do you have a really, are you tuned in on exactly how that lure feels and what it's doing?
Yeah, the real key is I've been, earlier in the week I was fishing, I've been really catching the majority of my fish because of the zone I think the fish are in on the DD22 by Norman. I've caught a few of my smallmouth on a Poe 300, but I really haven't been able to catch very many largemouth on it until today. I did catch a couple this morning in that smallmouth area on it, but then I went to the DD22 and then actually started catching bigger largemouth, and actually caught my biggest smallmouth of the tournament on that DD22, which just the opposite. I hadn't been catching smallmouth on the bigger bait.
To change the subject here just a little bit, Rick, I was interested this week in you referring to Tiger Woods a lot. I think you're very impressed with what he is doing and obviously relating that to what we're doing here, and the same possibility is there for you.
Well, I think it's always dangerous in any human activity, especially sports, when we get in this collective consciousness that everybody is about, is as good as they're going to get, and there's not going to be any quantum leaps anymore in ability or performance. And it becomes kind of a self-imposed barrier, and I think golf kind of saw that, where they said, everybody's so good now, nobody will possibly be able to dominate like Jack Nicklaus did years and years ago. But Tiger Woods has come along and showed them different. He's moved the bar way above where it was, and essentially showed them their unfulfilled potential, which is it's kind of hard to take sometimes. And I think in fishing, as a group of anglers, we've somewhat done that too.
This last 3 months, when you've made the top 5 in each event, of course winning one of them, is this the best stretch of fishing you've ever had in your career?
No, I've had several comparable stretches, but that's the word I want to get away from, is stretches, because that implies there's an end someplace. And
okay.
I'd like to be able to think that you can keep elevating your performance and not allow yourself to get into this. That's another, I think, self-imposed things on athletics. We have this idea of stretches, hot streaks, slumps. All of these are limitations in their simplest form. And I think once you get away from that, then you can keep elevating your performance on up. I think it's infinite on how good you can get, especially in a game like this where it's more mental than physical. We have to be in physically good shape, but there is definitely no limits to the mental aspects of this sport. Other sports do have physical limitations, ours doesn't, and especially the mental part.
thoughts on the mental side of the game from Rick Clunn there.
Pretty heavy, man.
David Dudley has had his own mental battle to fight today, and I don't know who of us could put up with what he's had to put up with.
I hate to say this, but I bet anything that when David Dudley got up there in his spot, looked like he had a little hit right there. All right.
Yeah.
And he's up there in smallmouth country, too. But anyhow, Tommy, I bet anything when he got up there in this spot and saw
smallmouth too,
one
buddy.
or two boats on that honey hole of his, I bet he just went
nice
poof. And for a good while anyway, he was bad messed up. And you can't do that. I mean, this is of course, you know what, Tommy, something we always forget about. In many instances, these are young kids. David Dudley and Arlie Napier, even Marty Stone. They're still in their 20s yet.
Absolutely.
And Rick Clunn, he's an old timer like I am. But Rick Clunn has been through all these wars and really has the experience.
That's a smallmouth right there, buddy. Let's go back up, make that drift one more time.
Rick Clunn is fighting the drift. He's staying stuck on one place, and man, it's working.
And we have used the word ledge, 30 times already today. So we got a viewer out there that doesn't know what a ledge is. You know what you need to do when you're driving down the road in your car, especially out of town? Just look across the field and in the rolling hills and envision water coming up and coming over these ledges. And then the fish would normally be very close to those ledges or maybe even over on the side of them.
You know, I came here with the mindset that that's all I was going to do. I was going to spend every day, I was going to get on ledges, and I was going to run ledges for 12 hours a day. And there's 20 times a day, because they're fishing until you hit them, you don't get a bite, hardly. And there's 20 times a day where you try to say, man, let's go do something else, this ain't working. But you got to say, no, next spot will probably be where they're at. I found this spot the fifth day, and never had another bite after I left it that day. And so, you know, that's the good side of it. It's hard work, but most people miss the fish.
The Walmart FLW Tour is brought to you by ShopVac. The only thing more powerful is our name. By Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road. By Everstart Batteries, more power for your money. And by Kellogg's, the best to you each morning.
Fuji Flashback watches Rick Clunn land a big smallmouth. Hey, it was the Rick Clunn show today, wasn't it?
Welcome back to Florence, Alabama, where the weather's a little bit warm today. Just got a whole lot warmer here in this tent. This is the climax of the year on the Walmart FLW Tour, our regular season, the Forest Wood Open. $200,000 to the winner. Our leader, Rick Clunn, at this point, 8 pounds, 9 ounces. He's weighed in 3 fish. The only other man left in the competition has also weighed in 3 fish. Arlie Napier from Middleborough, Kentucky. And at this point, Arlie Napier needs 3 pounds, 2 ounces in order to take the lead on his next weigh-in of fish. 1, 2, whatever it takes. Getting down close to the wire here, Charlie. This is looking for 3-2 for Arlie Napier. First top 10 ever. First top 5, of course, ever. Looking for 3-2. Oh.
Not quite enough there on that one fish. He's going to need one more to take over the lead. He's going for his limit fish.
All right, Arlie. Man, he has come through in great shape. Arlie Napier.
The net weight here for 2 fish, 6 pounds, 6 ounces, 6'6".
6'6" for Arlie Napier. He takes the lead, so your new leader, Arlie Napier. Woo. Well, Charlie, back to Ricky Clunn. Ricky Clunn now needing 3 pounds, 6 ounces to take the lead. Arlie's weighed in his limit, so if Rick can come up with 3 pounds, 6 ounces or better, Rick Clunn will be your $200,000 champion here at the Forest Wood Open for the year 2000. Rick, we're ready to see him. There they are. Woo! Wow.
Let's make it official here, Rick.
We're looking for 3-6. I think we've got it.
2 fish.
We got some excited fish, too. We're all excited here in the tent.
7 pounds, 2 ounces.
There's your champion of the first Wood Open, Rick Clunn from Ava, Missouri. Harley, stay up here and we'll come interview you in just a second, Gilbert. Man, oh man, Rick. 3 top 5s, 2 wins out of those 3 top 5s. You talk to most people, they'd say it wouldn't be possible on a tour that has 6 events. But there was one man who believed it was possible, knew all along it was possible, and that was you.
Well, I've always believed it's possible when I got into the sport that you could develop your skills to the point that you could truly, like any other athlete, that you could get to a certain level and actually dominate at times. And I've always known I had the ability. I've had the ability. I've certainly got the experience, and it's mostly now for me just a motivation game, fighting the motive, finding all the right motivation to peak that ability and that experience out at the same time. I'd like to, since this is the Forrest Wood Open, I'd like to take the, I know he wasn't feeling well today, and it's probably, Forrest Wood is, most people don't know this, is probably the finest man that I've ever known in the sport of fishing. He's an extraordinary human being. There's no doubt in my mind, there's been a lot of people contribute to the sport, but there's no one that's helped fishermen more than Forrest Wood and that company. But the thing I most admire about that man is he's been incredibly successful, developed an incredible company, and yet it's never been at the expense of another human being. That's what I most admire about him. He's that good a person.
One more hand for our
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com.